Have you ever felt that strange sensation of being alone in a crowd, as if you were a foreigner in your own life? That moment when you look around and realize everyone is running in the same direction, following the same rules, chasing the same borrowed dreams, and you stand there motionless, feeling like you're the only one who sees the whole thing for what it really is. It's a disturbing sensation, almost suffocating. You strive, you work, you compete, you surpass one after another, believing you're moving up in life, that you're winning. But the higher you climb, the more a strange silence takes hold of you. It's not the silence of peace, it's the silence of emptiness. It's as if each person you left behind took with them a piece of the noise that kept you distracted from yourself. And then on some ordinary day, you arrive there, at the top, at the place you always dreamed of. And you discover it's the quietest place in the world, where the only voices you hear are your own, and they whisper things you've spent your entire life trying not to hear. Franz Kafka understood this loneliness in a way that cuts to the soul. Today we're going to explore together this painful and necessary journey to the deepest silence that exists, the one that lives in the heart of those who dare to go beyond what everyone expects. If you've made it this far, it's because something in these words touched you in a way that hurts and soothes at the same time. You're not alone in this feeling of being lost, even when everyone says you should be happy. This channel exists for people like you, who feel there's something deeper happening in life, something others don't seem to see or prefer to ignore. Here you'll find not just understanding, but real tools to navigate these dark waters of the soul. Subscribe now and hit the bell, because you deserve to have a place where your deepest questions are taken seriously. And leave your like if this message reached you at the right moment, because this helps me reach other people who, just like you, are searching for true answers in an age full of empty noise. The loneliness of the winner is a phenomenon that Kafka understood like few others. Imagine for a moment the image of a mountain. Seen from below, it appears imposing, majestic, a desirable destination. Everyone looks at the summit and dreams of being there. But what nobody tells you is that the higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes, the harder it becomes to breathe, and especially the fewer people exist to share the view with you. Each step you take up the ladder of success, recognition, personal achievement is also a step that distances you from the noisy crowd that once distracted you from yourself. It's a cruel irony of human existence. You work your entire life to stand out, to be special, to surpass others. And when you finally succeed, you discover that the prize is a loneliness that no self-help book prepared you to face. Kafka lived this experience in his own skin. He was a man who stood out intellectually, who saw things in a way his contemporaries couldn't understand. His genius placed him in a unique position. But that unique position was also a lonely position. He wrote about characters trapped in bureaucratic labyrinths, transformed into insects, lost in impossible castles. These weren't just literary metaphors, they were intimate portraits of the experience of being outside the herd, of having surpassed common limitations and discovered that on the other side exists a silence that echoes with questions most people prefer not to ask. When you surpass everyone, you don't find a celebration party waiting for you. You find a mirror, and in that mirror, for the first time in your life, you see yourself without the masks, without the comparisons, without the distractions. It's you and your own existential questions. It's you and the weight of your choices. It's you and the responsibility of having arrived where few arrive, carrying not just your own expectations, but the projections of all those who stayed behind and now look at you as if you were from another species. The silence of the summit isn't the absence of sound. It's the deafening presence of your own consciousness finally free to express itself. During the climb, you were too busy surpassing others to hear your inner voice. Now, without the competition, without the noise of the race, without the voices of others telling you what to do, You're faced with questions that were always there, patiently waiting for your attention. Who am I when I'm not comparing myself to anyone? What do I really want when I'm not wanting to be better than others? What is my purpose when it's no longer about proving anything to anyone? And you, have you felt that strange loneliness of someone who arrived where they wanted and discovered the place was different from what they imagined? That sensation of having surpassed everyone in life's race and realizing that the finish line was actually the beginning of a much more challenging journey? If you're going through this now, if you feel your success brought more questions than answers, leave in the comments this phrase: I reached the top and found silence. Your courage in sharing this might be exactly what another person who feels lost in their own success needs to hear today. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in this experience is the first step to transforming loneliness into wisdom. Kafka knew that true transformation happens precisely in this quiet place. When you remove all external references, all validations that come from being better than others, you're forced to find your own reasons to exist. It's a painful process, like a metamorphosis. You need to let go of who you thought you were to discover who you really are. It's like the character Gregor Samsa, who wakes up transformed into an insect. At first, the change seems like a curse, a loss of everything that defined your identity. But if you can get through the initial horror, you discover there's a strange freedom in no longer needing to fit into others' expectations. The silence of the summit forces you to confront the most fundamental question of existence. Do you exist for yourself, or do you exist only in relation to others? During the entire climb, your identity was being built in opposition, in comparison, in competition. You were better than this person, faster than that person, smarter than someone else. But when there's no one left to compare to, when you've surpassed everyone, who are you? This question can be terrifying or liberating, depending on the courage you have to look within. The experience of loneliness in success reveals something profound about human nature. We spend so much time trying to stand out from the crowd that we forget to connect with ourselves. We use others as mirrors to define ourselves, and when these mirrors disappear, we find ourselves forced to face our own image without filters, without editing, without comparisons. It's a brutal and necessary encounter. Brutal because it hurts to discover that much of what we thought we were was just a social construction. Necessary because it's only in this encounter that we can begin to build an authentic identity. Kafka understood that the true spiritual journey doesn't happen in the crowd, but in solitude. It doesn't happen in the noise of external approvals, but in the silence of your own questions. His characters are always alone, lost, trying to decipher systems that seem to make no sense, searching for connections that always escape them. This isn't a pessimistic view of life. It's a realistic view of what it means to be truly human. It means accepting that deep down, really deep down, you're alone with your choices, your doubts, your fears, and your hopes. The quietest place in the world isn't a physical place, it's a state of consciousness. It's that moment when you stop running from yourself and accept meeting face to face with who you really are, without masks, without audience, without applause. It's terrifying because we've grown accustomed to existing always in relation to something or someone. We're so-and-so's child, employee of such and such company, better than someone at some particular thing. But what happens when all these references disappear? What happens when you're neither better nor worse than anyone, just different? What happens when your only audience is yourself? This silence that Kafka knew so well isn't empty, it's full of possibilities that can only emerge when you stop spending energy trying to be what others expect and start discovering what you really are. It's in this silence that authentic creativity is born, true compassion, wisdom that comes not from books, but from lived experience. It's in this silence that you learn the difference between being lonely and being alone. Being lonely is a painful imposition. Being alone is a courageous choice. The irony of the human condition, which Kafka captured with surgical precision, is that we all start alone and end alone, but spend our entire lives trying to escape this fundamental truth. We create families, groups, institutions, belief systems, all to avoid having to face the fact that each of us is a unique and non-transferable consciousness navigating an existence that didn't come with an instruction manual. And when you surpass everyone, when you reach the summit of your personal journey, you're gifted with the explicit recognition of this truth. But here's the secret few discover. This silence, this loneliness of the summit, can become your greatest source of strength. When you no longer need others' approval to know who you are, when you no longer need to be better than anyone to feel valuable, when you can be with yourself without distracting yourself with comparisons, you find a peace that's independent of external circumstances. You find a connection with yourself that's deeper than any connection you've ever had with another person. Kafka teaches us that real transformation always happens in solitude. It's when we're alone that masks fall, defenses dissolve, that we can see ourselves as we really are. It's scary, yes, but it's also where our most authentic humanity lives. It's where we discover we don't need to be perfect to be worthy of love, starting with our own love. It's where we learn that our worth doesn't come from what we conquer or who we surpass, but from the simple fact of existing, of being consciousness, experiencing life through a unique and irreplicable perspective. The silence of the summit is also the silence of responsibility. When you surpass everyone, you can no longer blame anyone for your life. You can no longer say you didn't have opportunities, that others had advantages you didn't have, that the system was against you. You've proven to yourself that you're capable of overcoming obstacles, of growing, of evolving. Now you have to deal with the weight of knowing that your life is your responsibility. It's liberating and terrifying at the same time. This total responsibility for your own existence is what Kafka explored in his works. His characters are always trying to understand incomprehensible systems, navigate absurd bureaucracies, decipher codes that seem to have no logic. But what they're really doing is trying to find meaning in an existence that offers no guarantees, in a life that demands each person create their own meaning. And this can only be done in solitude, in silence, in honest confrontation with who you really are. When you arrive at the quietest place in the world, that place where you've surpassed everyone, and find yourself alone with your own questions, you have two choices. You can be terrified by the silence and try to flee from it, returning to the race, creating new external goals, looking for new people to surpass, new validations to seek. Or you can embrace the silence, make peace with loneliness, and discover there's profound wisdom waiting for you on the other side of fear. Kafka chose to embrace the silence, even when it meant being misunderstood, even when it meant living on the margins, even when it meant carrying alone the weight of seeing the world in a way few could follow. And it was precisely from this choice that his genius was born, his ability to translate into words human experiences that most people feel but can't express. The quietest place in the world isn't a punishment for having surpassed everyone. It's a gift. It's the opportunity to finally know yourself without interference, to discover who you are when you're not performing for anyone, to find your own voice in an age when everyone is shouting. It's the chance to build a life based on your own values, your own questions, your own search for meaning. In the silence of the summit, you learn that true victory isn't surpassing others, it's surpassing your own limitations. It's not being better than this person or that person, it's being better than you were yesterday. It's not conquering external approval, it's conquering internal peace. It's not reaching a specific destination, it's learning to find meaning in the journey, whatever it may be. Kafka knew that the absurdity of human existence isn't in the fact that life is difficult, but in the fact that we continue seeking meaning even when everything seems meaningless. And it's precisely in this search, in this insistence on creating meaning where no meaning is given, that our dignity as human beings resides. It's in the silence of the summit that you can clearly hear your own voice asking, "What is my meaning?" And it's also there that you can begin to build your own answer. The silence you find when you surpass everyone isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of the true journey. The journey back home, into yourself, to the encounter with who you always were but never had the courage to know completely. It's a journey no one can make for you, that no guru can teach, that no book can fully explain. It's a journey that can only be made in silence, in the courageous solitude of those who accept meeting themselves face to face. And when you make peace with this silence, when you learn to inhabit it without fear, something magical happens. You discover you were never really alone. You discover there's a deep connection with life, with the cosmos, with the mystery of existence, that's independent of other people's presence. You discover your solitude is actually a form of communion, a way to connect with something greater than yourself through the deep dive into who you are. This is the great lesson Kafka left for us through his words and his life, that the path to true connection passes through accepting fundamental solitude, that the path to finding others passes first through finding yourself, that the path to external peace passes through internal peace, and that all of this is only possible when you have enough courage to inhabit the quietest place in the world without trying to flee from it. In the end, surpassing everyone isn't about leaving others behind. It's about transcending the need to define yourself in opposition to others. It's about finding an identity that's yours, a peace that's yours, a purpose that's yours. It's about discovering you don't need to beat anyone to be valuable, don't need to prove anything to anyone to have the right to exist, don't need to be better than others to deserve love and respect. Starting with your own. The quietest place in the world is waiting for you, not as a punishment, but as a reward, not as exile, but as a reunion, not as the end of something, but as the beginning of everything. Kafka knew this, and through his words invites us to have the same courage he had, the courage to embrace silence, to inhabit solitude, to find in the apparent absence of others the deepest presence of ourselves, because it's only when you stop chasing after others that you can finally run toward who you really are.